Ah, Sweden, land of sleek design ABBA, and those little horses you put on your windowsill that everyone pretends they don't secretly love. It's often portrayed as a utopia, a Nordic nirvana where everyone's happy, healthy, and has inexplicably good hair. And while Sweden certainly has its charms, like seriously, have you seen their parental leave policy? It's not all sunshine and cinnamon buns. In fact, there are some surprising reasons why living in Sweden might leave you feeling like you accidentally wandered into an IKEA showroom at 3 in the morning, disoriented, slightly creeped out, and desperately searching for an exit. So, grab your lingonberry juice and settle in, because we're about to unpack the top 10 reasons why moving to Sweden might not be the fairy tale you imagined. Let's start with the elephant, or perhaps more accurately the polar bear, in the room: Swedish winters. Now, I know what you're thinking. Oh, snow, how quaint. And yes, for the first 5 minutes it is quite charming. But then you realize that the sun has decided to take an extended vacation somewhere south of the equator, leaving you in a perpetual twilight that would make a vampire feel right at home. We're talking months of darkness, folks. Months. It's enough to make you forget what your own reflection looks like, or worse, start talking to your houseplants like they're old friends. And trust me, the novelty of wearing a headlamp to work wears off somewhere around week 3. To cope, Swedes have developed some, shall we say, interesting coping mechanisms. There's the traditional glögg, a sort of mulled wine that's basically Christmas in a mug, but with a higher alcohol content. And then there's the ever-popular ljusmys, which literally translates to candle coziness. Essentially, you light every candle you can find, crank up the ABBA, and try to forget that you haven't seen the sun since, like, October. Of course, there's always the option of just sleeping through the entire winter, which honestly starts to sound more and more appealing the longer you're here. But hey, at least you'll save money on electricity, right? Sweden is beautiful, there's no denying that. But that beauty comes at a price. And that price is, well, everything. The cost of living in Sweden, especially in cities like Stockholm, is enough to make even the most seasoned New Yorker weep into their $18 avocado toast. We're talking rent that could rival the GDP of a small island nation, groceries that require taking out a second mortgage, and don't even get me started on the price of a decent cup of coffee. Seriously, you could fly to Italy, have a cappuccino in the Piazza Navona, and fly back for the cost of one latte in Stockholm. And don't even think about going out for dinner unless you're prepared to remortgage your house, sell a kidney, or just eat ramen noodles for a month. Now let's talk about the language barrier. Swedish is, well, it's a language, and like any language, it has its quirks. For starters, it's a Germanic language, which, great, you might think, if you speak English or German. But then you encounter words like köttbullar, meatballs, and fika, coffee break, but so much more than that. And you realize that maybe those language classes weren't such a bad idea after all. And then there's the whole tonal thing. Yes, you heard me right, tonal. Swedish has something called pitch accent, which means that the meaning of a word can change depending on how high or low you say it. So you can literally insult someone by accidentally using the wrong pitch. It's like a linguistic minefield, and I, for one, am terrified. Chapter 4, Taxation without representation. Just kidding, they have that too, but still. Let's talk about taxes, baby. Sweden is known for its high taxes, like really high taxes, but hey, at least you get free healthcare and education, right? Well, yes, that's true. But before you pack your bags and book a one-way ticket to Stockholm, let's unpack this a little further, shall we? Because those high taxes don't just magically disappear into thin air. They go towards funding a very generous welfare state, which is great in theory. But it also means that your hard-earned kroner are going towards things like, say, free saxophone lessons for retirees or government-funded interpretive dance performances about the plight of the Swedish crayfish. Don't get me wrong, I'm all for art and culture, and I'm sure those crayfish have a very moving story to tell, but I'm not sure it's worth sacrificing my daily avocado toast for. Chapter 5. Systembolaget. Where your weekend buzz goes to die now, let's talk about something near and dear to many of our hearts. Alcohol. Or more specifically, the lack thereof. Sweden has some of the strictest alcohol laws in Europe. You can't just waltz into any old convenience store and grab a 6-pack at 3 a.m. Oh no, my friend. If you want to buy alcohol above a certain percentage, you have to go to a Systembolaget, which is basically a government-run liquor store. And let me tell you, these are not your average liquor stores. They're like the Apple stores of alcohol, with sleek design, minimalist shelves, and employees who look like they could be Scandinavian supermodels. But don't let the fancy facade fool you, because the prices will make you want to weep into your wallet. And don't even think about asking for a discount, because those System Bolaget employees are as cold and unforgiving as a Swedish winter. Chapter 6. Finding an apartment in Sweden, Mission Impossible. So, you've decided to brave the long dark winters, the high cost of living, and the System Bolaget. Congratulations, you're braver than I am. But before you start packing your bags, there's one more hurdle you have to overcome. The Swedish housing market. Finding an apartment in Sweden, especially in the bigger cities, is like trying to find a unicorn riding a bicycle while juggling chainsaws. It's nearly impossible. The rental market is incredibly competitive, with waiting lists that are longer than a Swedish winter. And if you do manage to find an apartment, be prepared to pay an arm and a leg and maybe a kidney or two for the privilege. Chapter 7. Lost in translation: cultural quirks and mishaps. Swedes are lovely people. They're polite, efficient, and have a great sense of style. But let's just say that their cultural norms are a little, shall we say, different from what you might be used to. For example, there's the whole concept of lagom, which roughly translates to just the right amount. It's all about moderation, balance, and not standing out too much, which is all well and good, until you realize that it also applies to things like expressing your emotions, making friends, and God forbid, making eye contact on public transportation. Then there's the Swedish love of queuing. Swedes love a good queue. They'll queue for anything. Buses, trains, toilets, you name it. And don't even think about cutting in line, because that's a surefire way to get yourself publicly shamed. Chapter 8. Free healthcare, but at what cost? Spoiler, your time. The Swedish healthcare system, the envy of the world. And it's true, Sweden has a fantastic healthcare system. But before you go throwing away your health insurance cards, there are a few things you should know. First of all, free healthcare is not actually free. It's funded by those high taxes we talked about earlier. But more importantly, be prepared to wait, and wait, and wait some more. Because the Swedish healthcare system, while excellent, is also notoriously slow. Need to see a specialist? Be prepared to book an appointment 6 months in advance. Have a medical emergency? Hope you brought a good book, because you'll be waiting in the emergency room for a while. Chapter 9. Sunshine? What sunshine? A seasonal, affective disorder comedy. We've already talked about the long, dark winters, but let's delve a little deeper into the psychological impact of living with limited daylight, because let's face it, not seeing the sun for months on end can do a number on your mental health. It's like living in a perpetual state of jet lag. People in Sweden are generally happy and well-adjusted, but even they're not immune to the winter blues. In fact, seasonal affective disorder, or SAD, is a real thing in Sweden, and it affects a significant portion of the population. So if you're thinking about moving to Sweden, you might want to invest in a good light therapy lamp, a stockpile of vitamin D, and maybe a therapist who specializes in treating people who haven't seen the sun in 6 months. Chapter 10. Making friends in Sweden. It's like trying to join a secret society. Swedes are notoriously reserved. They're not exactly known for their outgoing personalities or their love of small talk, which can make it a little, shall we say, challenging to make friends when you first move here. It's not that Swedes are unfriendly, they're just, well, Swedish. They value their personal space, they're not big on superficial conversations, and they take a long time to warm up to new people. So if you're the type of person who likes to make friends with the barista at your local coffee shop or strike up conversations with strangers on the bus, you might find the social scene in Sweden a little, well, quiet, but don't despair. There are ways to make friends in Sweden. Just be prepared to put in the time and effort, join a club, volunteer, or take a Swedish language class. And most importantly, be patient. Because once you do break through that icy exterior, you'll find that Swedes are some of the most loyal and supportive friends you'll ever have. Outro: Sweden, love it or leave it, but maybe pack a light therapy lamp. So there you have it. The top 10 reasons why living in Sweden might not be the fairy tale you imagined. But before you cancel your flights and throw away your ABBA albums, let's be clear. Sweden is a beautiful country with a lot to offer. It's safe, clean, efficient, and has a fantastic quality of life. But like any country, it has its quirks. And those quirks can be a little, shall we say, challenging for newcomers to adjust to. But hey, that's all part of the adventure, right? So, if you're thinking about moving to Sweden, go for it. Just be prepared for a wild ride. And maybe pack a few extra candles just in case. What are your experiences with Sweden? Share them in the comments below, because at the end of the day, isn't that what life's all about? Finding the humor in the absurdity of it all? Or maybe that's just the glögg talking.